You are listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 44. Today we are chatting all about relationships. What is a good way to attract the person of your dreams? How do you hold space for your partner to feel comfortable sharing deep struggles or experiences with you? How do you navigate working together and living together? And what are some boundaries you can set to find harmony in your business and personal relationship? This is just the beginning. My guests dive deep and share such great advice for any couple who are looking to deepen their connection, but also navigate working together as well. So grab yourself a cup of organic tea, get comfy, and let's dive on in. You are listening to Love Unplugged, a podcast focused on love in all its forms. I'm your host, Jessica Frigon, hopeful romantic and founder of Project Love. I found that too often love is set aside or taken for granted, and we tend to forget how to care for ourselves and our important relationships in the day-to-day chaos. So let's slow down, tune in, and begin our journey of rediscovering love. From honest heart-to-heart conversations with real couples and knowledgeable guests to deep dive reviews of new products and services that will help you feel beautiful inside and out. If you're looking for relatable advice or wanting to be inspired by real-life love stories, you've come to the right place. Without further ado, let's get to it. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by Amanda, who is a returning guest, and her husband, James. So James and Amanda Silvas are college sweethearts turned multi-passionate entrepreneurs and business owners. They are speakers, teachers, philanthropists who have been featured on Las Vegas News 8, News 3, NBC, and the CW. They're experts at doing what it takes to constantly rise to the next level and help others do the same. Their passion is teaching others to harness that 1%. They have built the Be the 1% brand into a six-figure business from nothing but a mantra and a dream of what it could be, and they host multiple events, workshops, coaching programs throughout the year. Their podcast, Be That 1%, is listened to in over 70 countries, which to me is just like, wow, so accomplished. They are a power couple, and today we are going to be jumping into the relationship and how that all works for them. So welcome, Amanda and James. I'm so honored to have you as my guest, and I'm so excited to learn all about your story and relationship advice. But before we start, if I've missed anything, I would love for you to share a little bit about who you are.
I think you covered it pretty well. We're just grateful to be here.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Oh, definitely. I'm just so excited to jump on in. I've been craving to talk to a couple and their relationships, so this is perfect. So I want to start where all the love began. So how did you guys meet? How did this relationship start?
We're both looking at each other like, do you want to go? Do I want to go? Well, we are college sweethearts, so we met in college. I met James through Greek life when we were going to school at UNLV, and he decided he was going to go through Rush as a senior, so he naturally stuck out like a sore thumb. I met him when I was 20 years old. Didn't really think too much of it other than like, he's cute. We have a good conversation, but I was just such in a different headspace and going through some heartache myself and just really trying to focus on me. So I didn't really even pick up that he liked me for a solid 6 months, I would say. There was this one time where we were really connecting at a party, and it was like we were in our own little world. And then we never even got each other's numbers. But we would see each other from time to time. And then it wasn't until spring of 2011 where we connected again and challenged each other to a cook-off. Like, we ended up talking at the gym on campus and ended up sitting there talking for over an hour about life and different things. And I could just tell he was different than every other person that I had met in college. Like, just where he was at in his life and his understanding was so different. And we just really hit it off from there. And we grew close really fast, I think, because we unconsciously had very similar values and were wanting similar things in life. And I don't know, like
Yeah. The reason why we didn't get the number the first time is there was a family emergency that happened. So we both had to exit the party, and that was the last thought on our minds. And so that's when the 6 months went by before us kind of reuniting in the gym. And that was the beginning of our dating, and I had just previously came out of a 6-year relationship. And so I was in a situation where I was trying to evolve into the man that I wanted to be. to attract the woman that I wanted to be with. And through that journey, through that process, right at the right time when it was meant to be, that's when we met in that gym, and we just vibed mentally, and
James goes, "Hey, want to do abs?"
best pickup line ever.
Little did I know, like years after that, he had asked someone else before me when he was on the treadmill and was like,
and she said no.
And so he's like, "Okay, I'll go just do up to the abs section." And I was already there, like getting ready to go to like the mat section. And he was like, "Hey, what's up? How's it going?" He's like, "Are you going to do abs?" "Yeah, I want to do abs together." And so then what turned into doing abs ended up talking in between our breaks, talking for an entire hour at the gym, being like, "We should continue this."
Yeah. So had I known that she was upstairs, I definitely wouldn't have asked that first, girl. It all works out for the better.
Good save. Good save.
Yeah.
What was the thing that attracted you guys most to each other? Like, Amanda, you said, he thought differently. He was very different from what you had experienced before. But was it like physical at first, or was it straight up just the mental aspect of it and how you guys connected on that level?
Yeah. For me, first it was physical. It was like she had an athletic body, she had brown hair, blue eyes, and like that is my style. That's my type, right? So she, was the perfect height. She embodied all the characteristics that I found attractive in women. So that's initially what drew me to her. And then within a short period of time, and within the first conversation, the way she smiled, her laugh, the way she emphasized her thought process and kind of where she was going in the future. I mean, we got deep pretty quick within the first conversation. It's like, what do you almost like borderline, what are you on this earth to do? And so I didn't think about this as a test, but I just naturally had asked those questions because my whole life I've been asked those questions. And so naturally I just kind of transferred that to her, and the way she answered piqued my interest. I'm like, wow, I hadn't met a girl like this that has been so sure of herself and kind of some sort of trajectory onto the future. And so that was like the second thing that attracted me. And then the deeper we talked, the more we connected, that's when the emotional bond came there. And then, over the years, it's been phases, emotional, physical, mental, spiritual. And now where we're at now, we're bringing another life into this world. So it's kind of crazy to think.
Well, I think it's interesting hearing from a male's perspective what the steps were, because for women, it may be very different. As for me, I was in a different headspace. Like, I was not looking to date anyone. So even though James was attractive, yeah, sure. Like we're in college and there's a lot of options all over the place. But for me, I was not even in the headspace to even give it two seconds thought. But what intrigued me to him was more of his intellectual side and his ability to have a conversation, and his ability that he was well educated and we could talk about things that were of substance. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners, we've all felt this way, where we're not interested in small talk. We're not interested in the superficial conversations. And I think in college you can find yourself being in those superficial conversations, or those party scenes, or they're this or they're that, and they're just very surface level. So what attracted me to James was, once we got talking, I realized how surface level it wasn't, and how more on an intellectual basis, and we could actually talk about things that mattered and that I needed to take a second and think about. And for me, that was something I was looking for, not knowing, because I was really putting myself first for the first time in a while. And I was taking myself seriously. I was taking my schooling seriously. I was in a sorority in college. And so I was really wanting to get leadership roles and really focusing on those aspects of me. So being in a relationship was completely far out of my mind. So other people women may feel this way, that, okay, yes, that person's attractive, but what catches us is the intellectual side and the more compassionate side. Mm-hmm. And so that's what hooked me. And then I'm sure many people may feel this way, whether it's a friendship or an intimate relationship. When you vibe and you connect, you kind of cut through all that BS and all of the games and the this and the that and the texting and whatever it is. And you just get to really know each other, very genuine and authentic. And you don't play any of those games. And I think that's why we got to know each other so fast. And our relationship evolved so quickly and deeply. And we always tell the story where we were, because it's such a pivotal point in our relationship. Granted, we're both 21, in college. Okay. We're in like Greek life. Like James is about to graduate. I'm still have a few more years. And he decides he's going to take me up to this mountain, go hiking where he's never taken anyone before. It used to be this place where he went in high school to overlook at the city and just kind of contemplate and self-reflect. And he had never taken anybody up there. And so for him to take me was really, really, really important to him. And the fact that he invited me meant that I'm important to him. And he basically takes me up on this hike and is like telling me he wanted to tell me something. And I'll kind of pass the baton to James because this is totally, I can only imagine what he was feeling in his headspace because what he did was incredibly vulnerable and very courageous.
So I mentioned earlier that I was in a relationship for 6 years, and that was my most serious. That was a serious relationship that up until that time, that it taught me a lot about love, and it broke my heart. And I was in a dark place for a long time, and climbing out of that was one of the hardest things that I had to do. And so I vowed to myself that if I'm going to get into another relationship, I want to be upfront about what I'm looking for, so I'm not wasting my time and the other person's time. And so 2 weeks into our dating, I'm like, man, I'm really feeling things for her that I've never felt before. And so that's why I invited her up to that spot. 45 minutes later, we get to the top. We're overlooking the strip, and I look at her and I'm like, hey, so I bet you're probably wondering why I brought you up here. She's like, well, yeah. I'm like, well, there's something that you got to know. I believe in growth, and I want my relationship to be evolved around that. And I want that to be the staple that holds it together. And I understand that not everybody views life that way. And I completely respect that if you don't want that, but I need to know that if we're going to be in this relationship, that you value growth. So let me know. I don't want to.
You said if we're not growing, then there would be no reason for us to be together.
Exactly. And so I kind of turned off to the side to give her some time to think. And she felt like 3 days. But I was like,
probably like 15 seconds. But
I'm like, man, is it too soon? Am I too honest? Am I too vulnerable right now? Like, we've only been dating for 2 weeks.
And I'm just going to take a pause real fast from the man's mindset and like get into the woman's mindset, because ladies, this is like our dream, right? Like having someone so vulnerable and so sweet and so honest talk about growth and how much they care about us being in a relationship and all of this stuff, like just being able to be so open and honest and pour their heart out. And for me, I almost let fear get into my head, because my first immediate thought was, oh my gosh, what if I don't grow? Oh my gosh, what if I'm not enough for everything that he's wanting? Oh my gosh, this is everything that I've been thinking about. And here it is in front of you, Amanda, like say yes. But it was like, it took a lot of like this internal dialogue and struggle. And then I found myself saying, well, I couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of us will have these pivotal times in our relationships where we only lean in so much. We'll only trust so much. And sometimes when you want to go to that next chapter in your life, when you want to let someone fully in, you have to be willing to take that risk to enter that unknown and be completely willing to step into that fear of like, oh my gosh, I'm putting everything on the line. Oh my gosh, I'm going to put all my heart into this. And if it's not, and I don't know, what if I'm not enough? What if I'm not what he thinks he needs, or whatever it is? But in that moment, I knew that that was something that I had been wanting for so long. And here was the opportunity presenting itself. And do I lean in, or do I get fearful and lean out? I feel we can find this happening to ourselves, not just in relationships, but in business, in opportunities. When there's a fork in the road, are we going to lean in and say yes, even if it scares us? Or are we going to lean out and let fear win? I'm really grateful that and thanking my past younger self, Amanda, that barely knew anything about relationships at this point, to lean in and say yes. Because all I knew was that all of my other ones ended and they hurt. And yeah.
James, you seem very self-aware for a 21-year-old, right? Like at 21, I would not have it. I didn't know any men that thought that way, or that were even that aware of kind of what they wanted and how they wanted to have their relationship look like and feel like. So were you like on your journey of becoming a mindset coach at that time? Like, how is this possible?
So a lot of dynamics there.
It's upbringing.
My parents are phenomenal parents. Like, they instilled a growth mindset in me very early on. Someone that's always striving to be better, to learn, to grow, to be have a mindset of being a student wherever you go. And so I had that environment to grow up in, which I'm very grateful for. Around that time too, I also had a really great professor that allowed me to tap into deeper awareness around my mind, my body, and what I thought and how I thought. And so that was around the time where I was starting to develop that deeper awareness. And then third, I had a lot of pain from my previous relationship. 6 years of my life was dedicated to somebody, and the thought of being with them for a lot longer and then it not working out destroyed me. I love deeply and I'm extremely loyal. And so in that previous relationship, there was some things that were done that destroyed that. And whether that's my interpretation or not, that's what I felt. And so in order to prevent that, I knew that I needed to go through and have that courage to have that conversation. Because if I didn't, then I would regret it. And I didn't want the relationship with her, a relationship that I really, really like, to get off track, And so there was no other option. I had to be honest.
I have a question on this because I think everybody goes through heartbreak, and it's so hard to go through that and then be open to a new relationship afterwards and not carry everything that you experienced from your past into that new relationship. So how did you let go of what had happened so that you weren't carrying that into the relationship with Amanda?
Yeah, good question. So for 3 months after that breakup, I was in my room on the floor crying most nights. And I was with a roommate, and, he did his best to try and get me out and cheer up. And I just wouldn't do it. And after that, 90-day period of time, I realized that no one wanted to be around me. And neither did I. I didn't even want to be around myself. And so it's hard to live life like that. And obviously I want connection, and I want to have friends, and I want to go out, and I want to have a good time. And it's hard to do that when you aren't facing what you're doing. So I wasn't drinking a lot, but I was trying to distract myself from actually facing what happened and processing those emotions. And finally something just switched. And it's like, if you don't change, you're going to lose the relationships that you already have, and you're not going to enjoy life. And so that's around the time where I found this piece of information that allowed me to step into another man, which was, I don't remember where I found it, but it was basically creating your own dream woman. And I'm like, ooh, okay. Yeah. So I took out 4 pieces of paper one night, lit some candles, played some romantic music. I got in the mood and I started channeling my dream woman, and I started writing everything down. 5'3", brown hair, blue eyes, tight stomach, nice legs, loves to travel, can cook, humor, spirituality, like all these things, front and back, 4 pages, no joke. And then I looked at that and I'm like, there she is. That's her. I don't know where she's at. I'm just going to trust that somehow she's going to move towards me. And that's where most people stop. But the next part is even more important. And that's what does that woman want in a man? What are those qualities? And I started writing down independence. She probably wants someone that is well-groomed and, owns his own business and lives on his own and can provide for her and is intellectual and all these things. And I came up with a list of about, a full page. And then I was like, okay. And then the last step, which is the most important step, is how am I compared to that man? How close am I to being that person? At that time, I wasn't even close. So for the next 6-7 months, I dedicated myself to being that man. And in every interaction, I would be filtering who I was in that moment to who I wanted to be. And so it was super meta, I had to be aware of what I was doing in all situations. And so I became super aware. And then when Amanda came, it was just like, oh my gosh, you are the embodiment of everything that I've written down. And 3 months into our relationship, I showed her those pieces of paper that I wrote those things on. And she looked at it and she goes, is this me? And I say, that's you before I knew you. And so I like to believe that I attracted that by becoming it.
I love manifestation. That's amazing. And I love that you wrote down exactly what you were looking for, but also what you had to be able to attract that. And that can apply in like any area of your life. You know, if you have business goals or whatnot, you can write down your goals, but who as a person do you need to be able to get to those levels?
Exactly.
Right? It's like the flip side. I love that approach.
Yeah, it's a way to take responsibility and ownership. You know, I'm not going to just sit back and hope that she comes. I'm going to like do my part to be the magnet to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
that's amazing. So I want to talk about the proposal because everybody loves proposal stories. So who proposed and how?
I proposed.
Well, really?
I'm just kidding. I showed up to the proposal.
Yeah.
Good job.
I mean, so at this point, we've been together 5 years,
Yeah.
four-ish years.
5.5 years.
I'd been living together for quite a few years now. And so
5 years up until that point. Like we moved in pretty quick.
Yeah. And James hung around for the few years while I was still in college, and he was post out of college during like when I was vice president and president and all of that type of stuff. So I knew he was a keeper because projects were always at the house and everything like that. But it was, you know, what do we do as women? We're like, okay, here's my time frame. Okay, so are we doing this thing, or what's the game plan, or what's the this, what's the that, you know? And he'd always be like, it's like James is he was very cautious and very careful and took his time, which for me felt like an eternity to propose, but we had already known that we wanted to be together. It was just hard having that patience to have the ring and what the ring symbolized. And what did you do?
So
it was my birthday.
The reason why it took so long is because this marriage for me is like, once I do it, I'm done. Like I don't plan on getting divorced. I don't plan on like any of that. So if she really is the one, then there's such thing as like you have to do it within a certain time frame or else the relationship's not really going to evolve. But I wanted to make sure that I felt wholeheartedly that when I decide to do that, she is the one. And so I had to see that in stages. You know, in your 20s, you're changing every year. The person who you are at 22 compared to 21, totally different. 23 to 22, 24 to 23, 25 to 24. So like I wanted to see that progression, and I wanted to see how our relationship evolved before I actually put a ring on her finger. And so around that time is when I was like, okay, I could see my life with her. And I knew that she had been wanting to ask like 2 years. Like, so after 3 years, any time in that frame, she was like, okay, I'm ready. So I had to do it in a time when she didn't think it was that, which I don't know how good of a job I did. She'll tell you, but.
Oh, no. I mean, us ladies, let's be honest. Once we're ready, like we're thinking, oh, he's acting weird. What's going on? Oh, he's doing this nice gesture. I wonder if it's now. Oh, he's planning a date night. Oh, I wonder. We read into every little thing, and the biggest advice I can say is just surrender to it and enjoy it, because I think I got so in my head about everything that I didn't enjoy the process as much.
Yeah.
Take those little moments.
I think there's a lot of like, there can be a lot of insecurities in it, because it's like, well, if you don't put a ring on it, like, are we wasting our time, or how much longer do you want me to wait? Like the ring is a sign of certainty in the relationship. And so if that doesn't come for some time, and, you know, there's some things from the past that you keep replaying or conversations that you aren't having, then it makes it more challenging. So you got to be aware of all those. But I decided to propose on her birthday because I figured I could get away with having her blindfolded and taking her certain places, and she would think that it was for her birthday when really I was going to propose. So I got her friends involved because I couldn't be there. I didn't want to see her until I actually asked. So I had her get a massage, get her nails done, and have her go home, relax, and then be blindfolded by her best friends, and then drove to
Bellagio,
Cosmopolitan.
Oh, Cosmo.
And I got a corner suite at the Cosmo, like on the 50th floor. And I was going to time my ask with the Bellagio fountains.
Oh, wow.
And so it took a lot of planning, and there was a 15-minute window that I had to schedule all of this in. And so I'm in constant contact with her friends. I'm like, where are you? Is everything okay? Da, da, da. And I set up the whole room with like candles and rose petals. And there was like a aisle leading from the door that you walk in back to the slider that led to the balcony, that led to the corner of the balcony where you can see the whole strip. And that's where like a little altar of candles was, and me. And I was standing there, and she came out, and I freaking started crying. And I like didn't even know what to say. And I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. My heart was beating so fast. My palms were sweating. I wasn't even forming coherent sentences. I may have spoken Spanish. I don't know. but then the fountains kind of go off, and I'm like, oh, will you marry me? And I got down on a knee, and that was a powerful moment. And she said yes. And we kissed, and we had a good night that night.
I always forget how hard it must be to be the man proposing. Like, as a woman, you kind of forget that they have to actually ask the question, and it's a pressure moment, right? They have to get it right. But like, you're just thinking about it from your perspective, but holy crap, like that's a loaded question. That's a pretty big one. And there's a lot of expectations put on that moment as well, regardless of whether, your partner, your person that you're with is that type of person or not. You still have expectations, right? So trying to live up to that and create this wonderful moment, that's a lot of pressure for guys.
I know. And that's why I was saying, like, ladies, like, we need to take a step back, because yes, we want the ring because of the Pinterest, and we dream of it, and we watch like the wedding shows and the this and the that, and we talk about it with our girlfriends, and it's just the natural evolution of like, okay, when you guys gonna get engaged and married and whatnot. But we forget how much weight is put on their shoulders, and how much pressure to find the ring and purchase the ring and ask the family and plan this thing, and it's a lot of work. And I think when we read into every little piece of what they're doing, we can almost ruin it for the process and the enjoyment of it ourselves. And I had no idea that months leading up to this, he had already asked my parents. And us living together, I had, now looking back, like, he was being different. He was acting different. He was looking at me different. And afterwards, I started looking at him different. And then, leading up to the wedding and all of this stuff, and now we're becoming parents, like, our relationship has naturally ever evolved. And we just are always looking at each other in a more loving and compassionate way. But I think that was the pivotal moment of being like, okay, yes, you 100% want to commit to this relationship, and you can't help but look at each other in just a much more loving way after that too. But yeah, I thought it was funny, as someone that has a coaching and speaking business as his career could barely put words together. I was like, what did you even say? I don't know.
It was a lot of
Does the girl even like really hear
no,
everything?
all she hears is like, just ask it. Like, okay.
Like, enough with the speech. Just say it. Okay, great. Thanks. And you know what's ironic now, because so many of us just want the ring, and we just look at the ring and we put Pinterest on the ring and how much he spent on the ring. What's funny is I'm literally not even wearing my wedding band right now, but I'm still intimately in love with this man and married to him. Mm-hmm. Like, my ring, the stone kind of fell out of it over like 3 months ago. We still haven't taken it down to get properly put back in. And I'm just literally wearing a few bands from Francesca's that I bought. Like, so it's just so ironic how we want that thing so much, but really at the end of the day, it's just the deep connection you have with the other person, and that you're using that as a symbol to bond you guys even closer together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We could go get it fixed, but then like all of us, we're both like, well, we have Joyride coming up, and we want these events, and like our impact together is more important than
just a thing, right?
A thing, yeah. And not to say that we're not going to go fix it and get a nice one and add to it. We will, when we both feel that time's right. But as of right now, it's kind of like, what's our priority?
Yeah, I just found that ironic.
There's so much focus on the ring itself, but I think we need to stop focusing on that and focus on, what is that speech that he's saying to us as he's asking us to spend the rest of our life together. Like that bond, that intimacy, and all that stuff is just so much more important than the ring itself.
Absolutely. There was I forget her name. I got to find it. But on the Tony Robbins podcast, there was a relationship psychologist that talked about 3 aspects of a relationship that if you want a relationship that thrives, you need to have these 3 elements. First is thrill. You got to have thrill in that relationship, adventure, spontaneity, excitement. Maybe that's a traveling vacation. Maybe that's just a random date night. That could be doing something that you've never done before, something along those lines. The second thing is sexuality. Like that needs to be strong and that needs to be frequent, and both need to communicate how they like it. And then third, which most people miss and confuse the first 2 as being this one, is intimacy. And, if people think that they're having sex, they're intimate, but that's not intimacy. Intimacy is being vulnerable in a emotional and mental capacity. What kind of conversations are you having? What kind of fears are you talking about? What past trauma are you bringing into the current relationship that isn't making it better, that you end up talking about? And through that connection, you work through it together and you deepen your love more so than what you know now. And so those 3 elements are super important and definitely need to be focused on, because if one is suffering, then you kind of see some leaky faucets in that relationship. But intimacy definitely holds it all together.
I totally agree. So let's talk about this wedding. Many people, I was a wedding planner back in the day as well, so I'm fully aware of how much work and pressure and stress goes into the wedding day, to the point where couples don't even enjoy the process anymore because it's a lot of work. And then on the day, they're just so exhausted and they don't eat dinner and they don't enjoy the food that they carefully picked out for their wedding, and kind of like a whirlwind, and they don't even kind of know what happened that day at the end. So I want to know, what do you remember from your wedding day that you feel was the most important thing to kind of put perspective back on what we should be focusing on when it comes to our wedding?
Well, I find it really interesting because I remember like every little detail, every little minute of our wedding. It's almost the reverse happened to us, where time didn't speed up and the night went so fast. Although we wish it lasted longer, it almost like went in slow-mo.
Slow fast.
It was like a slow fast situation, to where I can remember every little thing that we did, every little transition, everything leading up to it. And I think it's because we both wanted to be so present and in the moment. And it was so meaningful for both of us. And I definitely was a different person then at 26 than I am at 30, and was already working on this perfectionist side of me and releasing control. And so that was a little bit of practice that day of like letting other people help me and take charge of all of these different things so that I could just be there and be present and enjoy the day. That was my biggest focus, because I had heard everything that you just said. And so I wanted to make sure that I was really living this, and that something that we had been looking forward to for so long, we could really enjoy. And we did. We had a great time.
Yeah. Some pretty iconic moments that stand out for me were my grooms, like my groomsmen, the people that I chose to be by my side. Like, because I think Amanda and I both entered this thinking that this is our first and last, we really wanted to make it that much more special. And who stands next to you is really important. Like I'm not a fan of just giving people that spot because you need to fill it, or giving that place to people that are just their family, so you need to include them. Like, I really was diligent about who was going to stand up there with me, because that meant a lot to me. Like, you're there on one of my most impactful, special moments of my life. So if you're standing next to me on my left, you've made a significant impact in my life. And so that base of love gave me a huge support system that day, and it allowed me to be present because they took care of everything that I was worried about. If I had to go talk to somebody, they went and did it for me. If I had to, I forgot to pick up something that I wanted to toast everybody, like they went and got it. And so it's so much love for my guys out there that are holding me down.
Basically, they had this whole bromance session, like
it was a real thing,
leading until the ceremony.
Yeah.
Tears,
circle hugs, like it was awesome. And then seeing Amanda walk down the aisle that's etched and ingrained in my mind. And after we said I did, we made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to reminisce on our first date. And that cemented our vows. And then the night began, and we had such an amazing time. First dance, cutting the cake, toast.
The cutting the cake, I actually got emotional because I remember looking at my parents' photos. And for me, for some reason, like really cemented, okay, we're married. Like we're literally doing this adulting cutting the cake moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had like such a surreal moment during that. And the most beautiful thing about a wedding is there's very few moments in your life where you will have the majority of people that mean the most to both of you in one room.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't happen very much. And so being able to savor those moments and really spend time with the people that we love, that was the most special. Is that I don't think we've ever had that again at all.
We got the recording from our wedding too. So there's times where we just like, make some popcorn and we watch it and we just cry all over again.
Only on the anniversary. It's
only
not like we're always watching.
On the anniversaries. That's true. Specialized.
That's awesome. I definitely vouch for getting the videotape. Pictures are great, but it's just even more special being able to actually see things that happen, because you could have missed it, right? You can't be everywhere, and
True.
The video will capture kind of everything and what it looks like outside of you guys.
100%.
So first years of marriage, they're interesting sometimes. It's definitely different when you become married, even though you were together for a while before. Were there any changes that you guys needed to adjust to, or that you became aware of that you had to work through during those first few years?
First year was pretty easy and fun. I had always been helping James behind the scenes with his business, but that's when we full on built Be That 1% into a brand and a business. I just had these visions of what it could be, and just had these visions of this mantra that he had created for himself. I was like, many people can own this and resonate with this. And I see this becoming an event. I see this becoming a podcast. I see this becoming a movement and lessons and coaching, and it being its entire umbrella. So after we got married, it was like almost my permission to be like, okay, now this is ours. Like this is officially ours, and I get to have a say in what we do to create it. And so the first year was us becoming business partners and partners in crime, best friends, husband and wife. So we had a lot of titles. The first year we had a very clear mission and vision and dream that we were heading towards. And I think that really bonded us, and it just made us have this really strong purpose. And partly through, as we started rounding the corner into the second year, is when I started getting a little, and I talked about this on our podcast that we did individually, I started getting a little burnt out and feeling like I was putting myself behind the scenes and in the shadows, and I wasn't really stepping into my own voice. I was building out James's dreams and goals and visions. And if you asked me what I wanted, I couldn't even tell you anymore because I had attached myself to his stuff for so long. That was a pivotal shift in our second year, was me being able to start putting myself out there and showing us more together and less of me behind the scenes. That was like kind of year 2. Year 1 was easy peasy.
Yeah, I mean, year 2, during that transition, that was a really important time because I've always wanted her to do what she wanted to do, and year 1, she wanted to help me build Be That 1%, and that was great. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I would love for you to be here, and I want you to be here. I also want you to do what you want to do. So just know that whatever you're feeling, like, let's talk about that. So when she brought that up, I mean, that wasn't an easy conversation. That was hard for her to have. And that was also hard for me to hear too, because we had been working together for a year and a half, making some really good momentum. And then, she was like, hey, I want to go in a different direction. And it took me to catch myself and really remember that I wanted that for her, to like get out of my way of saying, well, you helped me build this, so you just got to help me finish it, which would be never. And so it was like a really humility piece of like respecting her wishes and really backing her in following her passion, which is what I did. So recognizing that and then loving that and then doing my best to like make that happen, that was a big transition.
Yeah, because I'd always been his support system, and now I was creating space for him to be my support system. And yeah, just allowing myself to step more into some of those things that I had hidden away for a while, and seeing how I'm still supporting him a little bit over here, and then I'm also building my own thing. So boundaries was what got implemented into our relationship that year. Like, when am I Amanda the wife? When am Amanda the CEO? When am I Amanda building my dream? When am I Amanda the support system? And vice versa for James, and creating really strong boundaries around when's our start time, our stop time, really diving into our relationship, not just focusing on our business, and making sure we were a little bit more well-rounded, and we were spending time focusing on ourselves independently and on the business, and then together. So we started implementing some of those things, and those things were coming to light the second year of marriage. And then the third year, I had gone through some trauma that we're still working through now, and that was a huge pivotal moment of me being able to express to James something that I had gone through and experienced that he wasn't aware of, that I had been hiding from him for like 4 or 5 months, and that had a lot of shame around it. And bringing that awareness to him, instead of talking to my therapist or talking to some girlfriends, like being able to have these conversations with James and being afraid, like, is he going to look at me differently? And so I think anytime we go through any trauma in our life, or things that happen to us that were outside of our control, we can be nervous to tell our significant other of, like, are they going to still love me? Are they going to still accept me? And that was, oh my gosh, that was a huge pivotal thing, because James just leaned in and loved on me more. And it unlocked permission for him to start doing emotional work on himself too. And now it's made us so tightly knit. Like, we've had like 4 relationships in our one relationship. And with the ability to have hard conversations and to be open with each other, and each of us are just different than who we were when we met in college. Like, being able to accept that person and all the things that come with it is incredibly important. And it's not easy to do. It's not easy to hear the fears, the insecurities, the projections of somebody else, and like make believe these scenarios or stories in your own mind, but be able to actually converse with them and say, you're saying this, but I hear this because it's triggering a past moment from a memory a long time ago, or whatever it may be. So we've gotten closer through trauma that I experienced, and it's catapulted our relationship, which we've been able to help other people in their relationships, because we just understand conflict and love and vulnerability at such a deeper level now.
How do you create that type of environment between you two where you feel safe to talk about those things? Because I know I've struggled. I know many people struggle with opening up and being vulnerable with that partner, or their husband or wife, and really sharing everything that's going on internally, and not feeling like it's going to cause an issue in the relationship.
Well, the container needs to be built that you're in this together, and you're in this to support one another. When you have the thought, or the other person has the thought, that this relationship could end at any moment, like, that's the fear talking. Mm-hmm. That you're in this relationship and you're here for the long haul, I think was what was built as the foundation of our relationship. Like James said, I'm not getting married more than once. Like, this is it. So when I make that commitment to you, this is it. And it's just that was our foundation. That was what our foundation was built on in our marriage. So if there's things in the back of someone's mind wondering, is he or she fully committed to me? Would they ever leave me? Of course we have some of these things, but if you're having the conversations and you're building the foundation that, no, like, if I'm committed to you, I'm committed to you, and we're in this through thick and thin. And James had communicated that to me over and over and over again. But being able to work through some things with a therapist was really helpful, in order for me to have this game plan to share with him some really hard things about my past.
Yeah, even though there was that safe space, like, that conversation, it's never going to be easy. Mm-hmm. But like, you have to look at it as, what's the alternative? What if you don't share it? what relationship are you building then? Are you building one that you hide from? Are you building one that is on a falsity? Are you building one that is preventing you from deeper levels of love? And if that's the case, then it goes back to like when I expressed growth being the most important thing in our relationship. There's really no alternative other than speaking out. And that's also, someone could look at it as a test as well, although maybe that might not be the best way of looking at it, but it's one way of looking at it is like, if I share this with you, how are you going to react? And if I share something so vulnerable and then you bounce, well, that's going to suck and it's going to really hurt, but at least I'll know, rather than living in I don't know, which is worse. So I hope that helps.
I think it becomes from this, we're nervous to share hard things because we're afraid that that person will look at us differently. We're afraid that we won't be enough. We're afraid that we won't be accepted, is the bottom line of it. But I think if you're working so diligently on yourself that you don't shame this past part of yourself, like you're working on accepting it. And as you've come to accept it and to heal from it yourself, then letting them into that. Because then you've held that container for yourself, regardless of making them carry the expectation of holding it for you. That's incredibly imperative for each person to be doing their own inner work and their own inner healing. It's like bringing a problem or trying to bring a problem to someone without having a few solutions to that problem. And so when you are going through your own trauma, and we've all had our own moments in our past, especially there's a lot that happened to women. And when we are not working on our own selves of healing that, and we're looking for our partner to be that source of healing, then we lose. Then there's the disconnection, because they're never going to be able to fill that quote unquote void. You will be the only one that can fill that void. And you have to work on accepting your past and not shaming it, being able to learn from it, being able to look at it, being able to see that, yes, I was a victim in this situation, but it doesn't make me unworthy. It doesn't make me unlovable. It makes me stronger. And I'm grateful that I went through that, because it's revealed this deeper side of me. And being able to accept that instead of shaming that is the first step, because when you start on that road of self-acceptance, you can share with your partner what happened, and you can share how you are healing from it. And then you can give them ways of how they can support you in it, because it's your journey that you're now allowing them to come along with you in. You're allowing them to be a part of that story with you, of whatever it is that you want to speak your truth in, whatever it is you want to share on, whatever trauma it is you want to let them into. But you have to feel like you're on that road to healing. It's never going to feel ready. It's always going to feel a little nerve-wracking and oh my gosh, like I'm someone that had to write down every talking point because I needed to have that as the backbone. And it was really hard for me to open up to James, even though we had been together for 9 years. Like, these things don't get easier, but we get stronger. And for him to be doing his own inner work and the work that he does with coaching other people, to take the tools that he's learned and actually utilize them in that moment, that's on him. And him being able to say, okay, I see this, I hear this, this is a projection. Man, that had to been really hard for you. And I was like so taken back by those are the things that he was saying. Like,
yeah, that was meta. Like, it was like, okay, there's this really big ball of rage coming up right now, and anger and sadness and the wave that was coming up. But then it was like, well, hold on, like, put yourself in her position right now. So I had to acknowledge that, and I had to like admire that, and then kind of and then I'm like, okay, well, now I'm going to tell you how I feel. And then I kind of just went into that, and then it was just a whole other evolution. So it's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but the container that needs to be created, oh, there's a lot of work around that. And I think if someone has a struggle with creating that own safe space and container, then you need to get a third party in there. And maybe that couple needs to go have someone that they trust, or they see a therapist, a couples therapist, if you don't feel comfortable and confident that you can create that space together, is something that I would recommend.
Awesome. So I want to talk about working and personal life together, living together and now having a baby on the way together. How does that all look like in your world? How do you guys work together, live together, have a relationship, nurture that relationship, take time individually? Like that's a lot in one household.
It is.
It is. And by no means do we have it mastered, but it takes a heavy dose of awareness, boundaries, constant communication, and a remembering of the higher purpose. So yeah, there's hats. Like I'm wearing, I think I wear like 7 hats at
James
least.
is literally wearing an Indiana Jones hat he got from Peru right now.
Yeah. And I have all these aspects of me, and I got to understand at what time of day is what type of me is coming out. And so recently I've been getting up earlier, and I noticed that helps me have my time. And then during the day, that's like business and finance and coaching and working on my craft. And then the evening is like family, where I can kind of start winding down and kind of letting go of work. Now, I haven't always been that good, because I was the type of person that I would blur so many lines that business was the relationship was the business. And on every date night, I would talk about all these business ideas. And she's like, babe, we're on a date. Can this wait? Can we talk about this another time? And like, it took me a long time to actually understand and grow into that. But it takes a lot of awareness. You got to check yourself. Like, who are you being? What's the purpose? What time is it right now? And for what? And be able to put yourself in the state to be effective in those areas.
Yeah, and every day looks different. So if someone's looking at like, what does your day-to-day look like? There's some days where he's closed in the office on calls back to back to back to back. We'll come down, eat and whatnot. And then there's days where there's things where we're out in the field, we're doing workshops, or he's doing trainings. There's sometimes where he travels in higher seasons. I do a lot more stuff from home. There's things where I'll do plan and prepping for events. So we've got our higher seasons where there's a lot going on, and then we've got our more calm seasons. But every day, which is nice, and this is why it serves my personality style, is different. It's not routine. It's not mundane.
Parts of the day are routine and mundane.
But
like the mornings, we have really solid morning routines that help set us up for the day.
Yes.
But as far as like the business daytime, like that changes.
But I love being able to work with James. When I left real estate, people would be like, "Oh, you're going to go work with your husband? Okay, yeah. Have fun with that. That'll last like a year." And it's not like I did anything to or we're doing anything to prove people wrong, but I love that we are proving people wrong, because it's working with your spouse is not for everyone. Working with a business partner as a friend is not for everyone. But for us, it works. And I actually love being able to spend so much time with him. There's days where I don't see him at all because of his line of work. And then there's days where I get to see him back to back to back, and we get to work together. We get to speak together. We get to do things like this together. We get to build programs. We get to coach people together. And I love that. That's so fun to me.
And we're in a period now where like we're getting really good at our craft. And so I'll forget that she's my wife sometimes, and I'll actually listen to her as if she's like, this I don't know, this really amazing leader. And I'm like, oh man, that's good. Oh, damn, that's really good. Wow. And I'll be like, damn, that's my wife. That's really cool. And like for the same thing for her. She'll know when I'm in the flow, and she's like, oh, James is in. I just got to let him roll with this. And then like gold will come out. And so like we both are understanding each other's flows, and when one needs to speak and one needs to listen. And that comes with time, and it comes with constant communication, and it comes with just being around each other with the intention of wanting to grow.
We also deeply communicate what we both need. And in order to know what we both need, you have to know what it is that you need yourself, and say like, how can I support you more? What is it that you need from me right now? Hey, I'm doing this. Is this enough? Like, how do you like this communicated? Hey, when we did this, did you like that flow? Hey, and like, always giving feedback, not critiquing one another, but always giving feedback. And after like we do a big talk or a workshop or something, we do good, better, hows. And that makes us make sure that we're growing next time that we do it, and that we're being intentional and the things that we talk about on this podcast, the things that we work with our clients, like we do these things in our life to make sure that we're growing independently, but then we're also growing together. I think a lot of the times when people work separately from each other, they actually get to spend very little time together. And that makes me so sad because you're spending more time with people that you work with than your actual spouse or your kids or your family. But I feel very blessed that we get to have such a high touch point throughout the day and throughout the week, and that our lives are so intertwined and our careers are so intertwined that if we are at date night talking about goals that we have or like business ideas, there's times where James will want to run numbers or talk about projections. I'm like, no. But then there's times where we're really passionate about something coming up, and that's fun for us. And so we talked about harmony on the last podcast episode. Like we've both got rid of this facade of balance, and we've both been able to lean into harmony. And in order to lean into harmony, you sometimes have to go from one extreme to the other to know where your middle point is. And in order to do that, you have to be able to feel through your day. You have to be able to intuitively know what it is that you need and want. And then your partner does that as well. And we go through these different seasons and we need different things. And the business is in its highs and lows and this and that. But if we've got something on the books or if we've got dinner coordinated, it's like, nope, babe, you're done. Shut it off. We're doing dinner now. Okay, this is on what we're doing. Nope. No, don't go spend that money. Remember, we said we want to do this. So we hold each other accountable, which is really fun.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
If that helps answer, how does it look like to work together?
That's awesome. I just love that. Parenthood. So this is a big topic right now because you guys are both expecting a little one coming soon. I want to talk about what that journey has been like as a couple. So I know, Amanda, we talked about it, what it's been like for you personally, but how has that changed your relationship?
Not too much so far. I think ask this after July and we shall see.
It changed me in knowing that I'm a dad has definitely brought out much more discipline and responsibility. And I think that's going to be that comes in phases. Like when Amanda was first pregnant, her body wasn't really showing. So I felt the initial boost of like, okay, like let's get things in order. Let's get organized. Let's start projecting out further than we normally do. Let's start a plan and let's follow that. And then as she continued to get bigger and bigger, it was like, oh man, this is getting more real. Right. And then when I felt the first kick, I was like, oh, wow, this is getting really real. And then the other day, Amanda goes, babe, you realize that we only have 4 months left for us alone. Like we only have 4 months left of just us for the rest of our lives. And it hit me. And I was like, oh, man, like that's so true. Like when this baby gets here, our lives aren't going to just be about us, and like conceptually you can get that. And I don't know if I'll fully embody that until I'm actually holding our baby. But the initial punch definitely came in that moment. And so for me, it's just been a slow, steady mindset shift in those areas. But my love for her is deepening, and we're learning a different form of communication, one through being able to anticipate and read. Like I'm learning how to read her in these moments because sometimes, these pregnancy, like hormones are kind of all over the place. And so I got to be prepared to hold space in whatever capacity she needs me to. So in that regard, our communication has enhanced.
Yeah, but I would say I don't know, like I personally feel like I've changed clearly. There's just been a lot of different things that pregnancy has brought on, but I feel like our relationship is more tight-knit than ever before. As I get ready for a big event that I have coming up called Joyride, or as I'm planning for things in the future that are a little unknown, that just gets a little nerve-wracking, and being able to bring in extra support, extra hands on deck, being able to have James be a part of my women's events a little bit more as well, and come in and build programs together. So that way I have him to lean on and not just do it all on my own anymore. Like this has been the season of, hey, instead of just speaking for one section at Joyride, I'm going to have you speak on both days because I may not be able to sustain my energy and hold that much space because I'm growing a human inside. And sometimes we get tired. Sometimes I don't know how I'm going to feel when I wake up. I can do everything right the day before, and then you wake up and you feel like your baby grew overnight. So you're extremely exhausted. Hopefully that won't be the case or feel that way when Joyride comes, but I'm trying to anticipate the things. And then even telling James, like, you've got all these ideas and all these plans, and normally I'd be the one to help you implement them, but I need you to start thinking about and budgeting. You need to hire help in this specific thing. You may need to hire help in this specific thing. So it's making us think way more in advance and start broadening our scope around sustaining and growing what we've created.
That's amazing advice. That's so good. I can't wait to see what happens after the baby's born and how you guys adapt to that new situation and how that brings you guys closer and everything that you learn from that new experience.
Yeah, us too.
So before we get into the rapid fire, I have one last question. Do you guys have any final tips or advice for couples to keep their relationship a priority in their life?
Invest in yourself.
I love that one.
Both independently and as a couple. So independently, that can look like, for example, our relationship. Amanda will go to events by herself. I'll go on retreats by myself. And then we will both go together. We go to therapy individually, and then we go together. So just make sure that there's some sort of growth happening in that relationship, or else it can get stale and stagnant. And we all know what happens when that takes place.
Advice. I always like saying this, seek to understand your partner, really lean in, and instead of leaning out and seeking to be understood, that can cause some disconnect. So putting that first, because a lot of times in my women's community, I'll hear, or he doesn't understand me, or he's not meeting the expectations that we've talked about, or this or that. How do I get him to be more open? And that comes from you being more about you. So when you lean in and you seek to understand the other person, how can I support you? How can I love you more? How can I be there for you more? You're going to start connecting on a deeper level. And then you will start to be understood because they will be leaning in from the other end. That's one thing that comes up around relationships. Another thing is that as you get older, your friend circle starts to shrink and shrink a little bit. Your little tribes may start to shrink and shrink and shrink a little bit. James and I's relationship is super, he's my best friend, and we confide in each other. He knows more about me than I probably even know about myself. But at the end of the day, I don't expect him to be everything for me. I think when we put too much pressure on that one relationship in our life to be the end all be all, and if it's not it, then da-da-da-da. But I think it's important to have your little tribes built around you so that you've got your guys' nights or your girls' nights. You've got your entrepreneur tribe. You've got your girls that you go do yoga with or that you go travel with, and you are making time to do connection nights, date nights, whatever it is, but not expecting our relationship to be the end all be all for everything in our lives, I think is really incredibly important for the longevity of the relationship.
Yes, I couldn't agree anymore. And that's so true, because sometimes you get so enveloped in that relationship that you start to put so much pressure on that one person to be everything. But that's not the way it should be.
100%. We see that all the time. And we see it in women more than men, where they pretty much don't have any outside friends other than their spouse or their boyfriend, and that they almost don't even have their own identity without him. And for a while, this was the case for me, was James and Amanda. And I'm like, wait, go be just James. Let me go be Amanda, just Amanda. And that way we can be James and Amanda very wholly connectedly, us together too. And I think a lot of people will adapt to what the other person needs and not think about what they need for themselves. And I find this a lot in the community of women. It's I don't even know who I am anymore, because I just am whatever he needs me to be. I'm just whatever they need me to be. What do I even like? And I think that's really important, is when you allow your partner to be everything for you, you do that unconsciously. You build your identity for what it is that you need for yourself.
Yes, definitely. All right, so we have some questions from the community and kind of want to go through them with you. The first one being, what is your spouse's quirkiest habit?
James does this like foot moving thing. It drives me freaking nuts. Like he's just sitting there and he's moving and the couch is shaking or the bed is shaking or he's just moving his foot. It just twitches all the time. All the time. And I'm like, your foot's moving. I don't even have to see it, but I know that your foot is moving.
Yeah. Amanda talks with her hands a lot. And so she needs to grab everything when she communicates, like her necklace, her ring, her shirt. She's like constantly grabbing things, touching things. And so it really cracks me up.
This is very true.
That's awesome. So what was your official first date? So I know you guys met at the gym, but your official first date, was it at a restaurant? What was that like?
It was a hybrid night. It was we went over to my friend's house because my friend and I cooked. It was like a double date in a sense.
But our own individual
or like
downtown Las Vegas. And we went and saw a show, and then we walked up and down Fremont Street. We went to Fremont Casino and got $2 Coronas and had a blast. And James, being a broke college kid, was like, hey, want to go back to the car real quick? And I'm like, wait, what? Why? And he's like, well, I packed a PB&J sandwich. I'm getting a little hungry. And it's funny because we literally are, the person that married us shared that story at our wedding. And that's why we sealed our, people will always do some sort of sealing of their vows with some sort of thing at their ceremony. But I spread on peanut butter, he spread on jelly, and we put it together and we both ate it because we took a break to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich walking down Fremont because we...
Right. And someone ate our sandwich
someone
at the wedding.
Yeah.
I was like, where's our sandwich at? They're like, oh, someone ate it. I'm like, who eats a sandwich?
Who eats a sandwich that you just saw them use in their ceremony?
Like we each took a bite out of it and then you just put it back on the table and you finish up with the ceremony.
Oh my God.
Yeah, someone got hungry and ate it. That was
Did anyone ever fess up to it?
I don't even know.
It was probably one of the boys.
It was.
That's
I don't
a boy
know who
thing.
It was, but it was one of my groomsmen.
They're like, oh, that looks so good.
Right? Like, I kind of want it does kind of sound good when you're in front of it, and especially when you see two people in love eating it. I'm sure it's enticing.
All right. Next question. Who cooks better and what is their best meal to cook?
Amanda cooks better.
But
James can cook very
But I can cook.
We now really split 60-40.
65-35.
What are your signature dishes?
Ooh. Sweet potato nachos.
No, I mean that's a staple, but
that's
it's not
a staple.
Signature.
What's my signature?
That's what I'm trying to think of. What's my signature?
You make breakfast hash in the mornings really good.
I'm a good breakfast guy.
I don't know. I have like a lot of different things that I'll make. In the beginning of our relationship, I used to make these chicken Kievs where you pound out the chicken and you roll it, or you put cheese in the center and you roll it all up and then you
it's super simple, and I'm not a complicated guy.
What?
She makes some bomb ass pizza.
You're so weird.
And that's my favorite food, so I'm gonna roll with that.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. Last question. What word best describes your spouse in the morning?
Meditative for James. Like a very meditative, like self-reflection.
Amanda is the hybrid. Like I have to. It's like some days it's like, don't talk to me right now, and other days it's like, hi babe.
You never know what you're gonna get.
I gotta read that when she comes downstairs, because sometimes, especially now with her pregnancy, her sleep can vary from like, oh, I slept really well to I didn't sleep at all, and so depending on that quality, a different person comes out. So
that I guess more. I'm a hybrid.
You're a hybrid.
But I think I wake up with more mornings of being like, I'm happy to be alive. Hey babe, what's up? How's it going? I missed you. I missed you when we were sleeping.
You guys are adorable. So if anybody wants to learn more about you, which they should, where can they connect with you guys?
Instagram for sure. He's James Silvis.
James_.
Or James_Silvis. I am I am _Amanda Silvis. We both have our names as our websites. Be That 1% all spelled out.com, Be That 1% podcast. Yeah, so amandasilvis.com, jamessilvis.com. Those are the main. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda and James, for taking the time to share your story with us, but as well for giving us amazing advice that will definitely strengthen our relationships.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.